Hey guys, welcome back to The Readers. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is a pro-revenge story. I used to work at a Burger King as a manager. It was already a tough job, but my general manager, Sarah, was decent, and most employees were easy to deal with. This all started in June 2023 when I was already working about 65 hours a week. My district manager, Alex, offered me a $100 bonus to work one of my only days off. I decided to do it, and later that week, before I had even been paid, I was asked to come in again. I said, this time I'd like $150, as at this point I've worked almost 23 days without any days off. They said they'd do it, so in I went. Fast forward 3 weeks, and I'd been asking about my money for a while. Sarah told me I could speak to Alex as he would be in later that night. When he arrived, I approached him during the dinner rush. Hey Alex, do you know what's going on with the bonus? I'm owed $250 for both days, I said. Alex looked uncomfortable. Well, that's why I came here. The store has been having trouble making money. Basically, he was telling me that my performance wasn't good enough. At this point, I was working the dinner rush with just 3 others. My girlfriend Mia, my best friend Jake, and another close friend, Emma. Alex continued, your shift isn't making as much money as others, and your drive-through time is higher. Well, we're doing all we can, I replied. It takes extra time when we only have half the number of people with the same amount of customers. That's really no excuse, Alex said dismissively. When am I going to receive my bonus? I pressed. Alex, being a very timid guy, was visibly nervous when he told me, we cannot give you a bonus until the revenue rises and drive-through time goes down. I was speechless. The rest of the conversation was a blur. I grew up in a tough neighborhood. You didn't mess with people's money. A day passed, and I'd had time to collect myself and speak to my entire crew. Everyone agreed to walk out with me, so I called Alex. The phone started to ring but then cut off. He declined my call, so I called him again, and again, and again. Finally, I just left him a voicemail. Look, Alex, you need to talk to me. You have until 8:45 to call me back, or all of night crew is done. At this point, it was 7:30 p.m. I went into my office and started watching Sarah's email. She always left it open and logged in. I figured Alex would probably email her before calling me. After about 20 minutes of watching this email, boom, an email popped up with the subject line, Emergency, Mike. That's me. This idiot put my name on the email, so of course I read it. Long story short, in the email, Alex was trying to make sure Sarah was ready to come to work. In other words, he wasn't going to call me or give me my money. I gathered all my people together. All right, guys, I said, it's time. They're not paying us what they promised. Are we all still in? They nodded, determination in their eyes. Let's do this, Jake said, and we all walked out, leaving everything out. All the meat, all the toppings, the fryer, everything. The next day, I turned in my keys. About a week later, I got a call from my brother Tom, who also worked at the store. What's up? I answered. Dude, you won't believe this, Tom said, excitement in his voice. Alex lost all of his stores. He has to go back to Ohio. If you don't know, district managers' pay is based on the number of stores they have and how much they make. When Alex moved to Ohio, his wages got reduced from $65,000 to around $40,000. All this for $250. As I hung up the phone, I couldn't help but shake my head. Karma's a real thing, I muttered to myself, feeling a mix of satisfaction and disbelief at how it all played out. The next one is an entitled people's story. I've lived on my family's farm for most of my life. It's been in our family for generations, passed down from my great-grandfather. The farm isn't huge, but it's got a decent-sized orchard that's been the pride of our family for years. We grow all sorts of fruit trees, apples, pears, peaches, you name it. It's not just a source of income, it's a part of who we are. Everything was peaceful until last spring when the house next door got sold. The previous owners were an elderly couple who kept to themselves. They were good neighbors, always respectful of property lines and such. But the new owner? She was a whole different story. Her name was Karen. I know, but that's really her name. And she moved in with her husband and 2 kids. At first, I tried to be neighborly. I went over with a basket of apples from our orchard as a welcome gift. Karen seemed nice enough, but there was something off about her. She kept looking past me at our orchard, asking questions about how much fruit we produce and how much money we make from it. I didn't think much of it at the time. Maybe she was just curious, right? Wrong. So wrong. A few weeks after they moved in, I was out in the orchard, checking on the trees. It was a beautiful spring day, and the trees were just starting to bud. As I was working, I heard the sound of a lawnmower getting closer. I looked up to see Karen mowing her lawn, getting closer and closer to the property line. Now, our property line is clearly marked. There's a line of old fence posts that have been there for decades. Everyone in the area knows where one property ends and the other begins. But Karen didn't stop at the fence posts. She kept right on mowing, cutting a good 10 feet into our orchard. I couldn't believe my eyes. I walked over, waving my arms to get her attention over the noise of the mower. "Hey!" I called out. "Karen, you're on our property!" She shut off the mower and looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language. "What are you talking about?" she asked, all innocent-like. I pointed to the fence posts. "The property line is right here. You're mowing our land." Karen laughed, actually laughed in my face. "Oh, honey," she said, "I think you're mistaken. This is all my property. I checked the deed when we bought the house." I was stunned. Was she serious? "Karen," I said, trying to keep my cool, "my family has owned this orchard for generations. Trust me, I know where the property line is." She waved her hand dismissively. "Well, the deed says otherwise. This orchard is part of my property now. I'm planning to have some of these trees removed to put in a pool for the kids." My jaw dropped. Remove the trees? Our trees? The trees my great-grandfather planted? Oh, hell no. "Look," I said, my patience wearing thin, "I don't know what you think your deed says, but I can assure you this orchard belongs to my family. You need to stop mowing our land and stay on your side of the property line." Karen's face turned red. "Are you threatening me?" she screeched. "I'll have you know my husband is a lawyer. We'll sue you for harassment." I held up my hands. "I'm not threatening anyone, I'm just stating facts. This is our land, period." She glared at me, then pulled out her phone. "That's it. I'm calling the police. You'll be sorry you messed with me." I couldn't believe it. She was actually calling cop over this. I heard her exaggerated voice as she spoke to the dispatcher. "Yes, hello? I need help. My neighbor is threatening me and trying to steal my land." While we waited for the police to arrive, Karen stood there with her arms crossed, glaring at me. I just shook my head and went back to checking on my trees. About 15 minutes later, a police car pulled up. 2 officers got out and approached us. One of them, Officer Johnson, I knew from around town. The other was younger, probably new to the force. Karen immediately launched into her spiel. "Officers, I'm so glad you're here. This man," she pointed at me accusingly, "is trying to steal my land. He's threatening me and won't let me mow my own lawn." Officer Johnson looked at me, eyebrow raised. "Is that true, sir?" I sighed. "No, it's not. I caught her mowing 10 feet into our orchard. When I pointed out she was on our property, she claimed the orchard belonged to her. I simply asked her to stay on her side of the property line." Karen interrupted. "That's a lie. The deed to my house clearly states that this orchard is part of my property." Officer Johnson held up a hand to quiet her. "Ma'am, property disputes are usually civil matters. We can't determine property lines. That's something that would need to be settled in court." "But he threatened me," Karen insisted. "I did not," I said calmly. "I simply stated facts about our property line." The younger officer spoke up. "Ma'am, did he actually threaten you in any way? Did he say he was going to hurt you or damage your property?" Karen hesitated. "Well, no, but he was very aggressive." Officer Johnson sighed. "Look, folks, here's what we're going to do. For now, both of you stay on the sides of the property that you've traditionally used. If you want to dispute the property line, you'll need to take that up with the county assessor or in civil court. But please don't call cop for this kind of thing again unless there's an actual emergency or threat." Karen looked like she was about to explode. But fine! I'll call my lawyer right now." As the police left, I turned to Karen. "Look, I'm sorry we got off on the wrong foot here, but I promise you this orchard has been in my family for generations. If you have any doubts, I'd be happy to show you our property records." She just huffed and stormed off to her house. Over the next few weeks, Karen made our lives hell. She'd stand at the edge of her lawn and yell at us whenever we were working in the orchard. She'd throw trash over the fence posts onto our property. She even tried to pick fruit from our trees, claiming it was her right since the trees were on her land. Finally, I'd had enough. I went to the county assessor's office and got copies of all our property records, including surveys going back decades. Then I hired a surveyor to come out and do a new survey, just to be absolutely sure. The results, just as I knew they would be. The orchard was 100% on our property, exactly where the old fence posts marked the line. Armed with this information, I went to Karen's house. Her husband answered the door. "Hi," I said. "I'm your neighbor. I was hoping we could talk about the property line issue." He invited me in, looking a bit uncomfortable. Karen came into the room, saw me, and immediately started in. "What are you doing here? Get out of my house!" I held up my hands. "Please, just hear me out. I have some information that I think will clear everything up." I laid out all the documents on their dining room table. the historical surveys, the property records, and the results of the new survey. As you can see, I explained, the property line is exactly where I said it was. The orchard is entirely on our land. Karen's husband looked over the documents, his face growing more concerned. Karen, on the other hand, was turning redder by the second. "These are fake!" she yelled. "You forged these!" Her husband put a hand on her arm. "Karen, honey, these look official, and they all say the same thing." "So what?" she snapped. "We'll sue them! We'll take their whole farm!" I cleared my throat. "Actually, I spoke with a lawyer. Given that you've been trespassing, damaging our property, and harassing us, we have grounds to sue you. But I don't want to do that. I just want to live in peace and tend to my orchard." Karen's husband nodded. "I understand, Karen, we need to drop this. We were wrong." Karen looked like she was about to explode, but then she deflated. "Fine," she muttered. "Just get out of my house." I nodded and gathered up my documents. As I was leaving, Karen's husband stopped me at the door. "I'm sorry about all this," he said quietly. "We'll stay on our side of the line from now on." True to his word, they did. Karen still glares at me whenever she sees me in the orchard, but she stays on her side of the line. And me? I'm just happy to be tending to my trees, just like my great-grandfather did all those years ago. The whole experience taught me a valuable lesson about standing up for what's right, even when it's uncomfortable. It also made me appreciate my family's legacy even more. Every time I pick an apple from those trees, I think about how close we came to losing them, and I'm grateful for the generations that came before me who preserved this land. In the end, I guess you could say the fruits of our labor were sweet indeed. In more ways than one. The next one is a petty revenge story. Guy at work is a hateful pause. Says if you don't go to the gym every day, you should key eyes, hateful against gays, trans, anyone that isn't a manly man. Anyway, I'd been holding in this massive fart so I could finish an email, then go to the toilet. I saw someone walking towards the front door of the office, and I knew what needed to be done, and couldn't waste this gem. I got up, ran out of my office and into the main entrance corridor. I let out this loud, windy wubby, and it was hot. You know they are bad when they are hot. I wafted it away from my ass and ran back into my office. A few seconds later, I heard the front door unlock and I knew he was able to inhale my fart. I didn't hear anything from him and I didn't expect to. However, it was a few minutes later a guy from my cubicle came into the office laughing how someone fucking destroyed the corridor. It was very petty and probably not that great, but that asshole inhaled a fart from my asshole. The next one is a malicious compliance story. I have learned so much from this sub and now I'm putting it all to use. I hope this is the right sub for this. So it's my birthday month, and while some stores offer their Fidelity members, people with club cards certain items, like the garden store let me pick out a little potted plant, perfume store gave me a free little travel size perfume, etc. Some stores only do a discount code, and only if you make a purchase, which is wild to me. I am in France, and normally it's just a small free item, no obligation, no strings at all, just come in the store and pick it out. For example, I ordered some wooden advent calendars for my kiddo to make while on the upcoming school break, and after I place the order suddenly I get a birthday €5 off my next purchase when I spend €20 email. No problem, I had set my delivery for pickup in store, so I just returned and rebought the items with the €5 gift. Perfect. Thanks Reddit for the idea, by the way. But the malicious part comes from the tax store. I got a gift card there and actually have had my eye on some things for my horse, so I went in and saw that I have a 20% coupon on all items, but only starting next week. It's store-wide. So I see the items I had wanted in the color I want, and there is only one of each item left. I ask if they will restock or can order me some if they happen to sell out before the sale. This is common. They can order anything from their catalog, so it's not rude to ask. Cashier says no. Okay. I ask if they can put items aside or if I can call in advance to see if it's stocked. No, this is so weird to me. I'm thinking I have slighted this person because normally the sales representatives have no problems holding items for 24 hours. But she states company policy and says she won't do it. Okay, that I can respect. So I ask about their returns and how long I have to return an item and what conditions. 0.30 days. Super. I bought the items, and next week when my voucher becomes valid, I'll be able to return then rebuy them. She actually smiled when she understood. We are both respecting company policy, and it's my perfect way to ensure the items are stocked. Plus now she can legitimately order more for her location. The next one is an entitled people's story. Years ago, my family liked a guest house in a town which lives off tourists. It was family-oriented. It was Nice's, close to my favorite ice cream and a family-oriented restaurant we frequented, so yay. The owners were friendly at the beginning, but somehow each time a guest was leaving, there were fees for damaged property when no damages were visible. so some guests found other places because they knew they didn't damage the property. We stayed 3 or 4 times. Then the gooseberry problem occurred, and it was the last straw. Later, my whole family joked that we were naive idiots paying for imaginary damages when entitled owners demanded. And we were idiots, which was unfortunate. The last straw was when I was 12 or 13. There was another family, girl 15 and boy 10. I said hi, and the girl almost removed my head. Because I was a kid and she an adult. She wouldn't interact with me even if I kissed her shoes. Besides, she was from the capital and I was a peasant. Her mom laughed so heartily at that, and exclaimed how well her daughter explained where that dirty peasant's place was. After that scene, my family never let me approach the whole family, not even to greet them in passing, which also made them furious, as they believed every peasant should greet them humbly. At the same time, kids were rude, and for once there was damaged property, including a broken window when both owners saw it, but they said nothing and never asked them for compensation. 2 days before the great confrontation, both owners told me to grab some gooseberries from a bush. I thanked them and explained I was allergic so much that I couldn't touch a leaf. Eating one means SB, must call paramedics and pray they arrive quickly, which is true, but with help of a doctor I can now touch gooseberry. Not eat, that part is tricky, but it's a huge improvement. So on the day of the confrontation we returned from dinner and both owners were waiting. They started screaming and people popped out of their rooms to see what was going on. Every single bush of gooseberry was damaged. Broken branches, stomped and flattened berries. A very sorry sight. Both owners demanded recompensation from my family because they saw me minutes earlier breaking all the bushes. At this point, my mom and aunt protested because minutes earlier I was in the restaurant with the whole family and the owners of the restaurant could confirm it. Not true, the owners knew it was me. Boy and girl were there too, laughing and telling every person around how my family would pay an arm and a leg and we'd see. See but what? Some back and forth, and I did something I shouldn't do being a kid. I confronted the owners of the house. Especially, I asked Mr. Owner if he remembered how I had explained I was allergic. Before he answered, Mrs. Owner screamed at me why my lies should mean anything. I ignored her and continued asking Mr. Owner if he had to call paramedics when I flattened all the bushes. He looked at me strangely and asked why should he. So, I explained that it was to avoid arrest for murdering me by the way of preventing me from accessing medical help. People around got quiet when a kid talked murder and also looked at me weariedly. So I marched to poor bushes, grabbed a leaf, and marched back to owners. I just held it and an ugly red rash spread. Then I asked the owners if they want me to strip so they could see the same rash not present on my whole body. And please explain how I could have damaged bushes without getting it. Both owners babbled something. We had no idea it was so serious, some guests told them. But we had shown you rude kids damaging the bushes. Why do you blame that kid who wasn't there? And we went to our room. My dad went quietly to the restaurant, told the owners all, and explained we couldn't stay. As we ordered meals there, he asked them to count everything and tell him how much we owed them. They told us to pay for next day as they already had ordered groceries for our meals, which was fair, but not for the rest of our stay, which was very generous of them. Dad returned to the guest house where we were packing. We went to the owners and asked for our bill for the whole 2 weeks we were to stay. And we asked other guests to wait to be witnesses just in case. Mr. Owner babbled, "There is no need." Mrs. Owner was angry. We even asked them and witnesses to check our room for damages. We left 30 minutes later and on our way home asked a doctor for help. He checked my arm, told me off very sternly, and I was to avoid stuff I'm allergic to, plus take my regular meds, and we drove home. Every year we went to that guest house. We called the owners around March to ask if they had free rooms in July. Next year, we didn't call them. So in May, they called us and happily told us how they kept our regular rooms so we could arrive any day we want to. They offered 5% off. So we equally happily explained that after last year's bad attempt at extortion, we have found another guest house in town _X. There was some clucking and my mom ended the call. We never returned to that house. I have been to the same town several times because it is cute, and with funny tourist attractions, just keep avoiding that one guest house. Guess what? With all the witnesses we asked for, the owners didn't add fees for fake damages in that last bill, but they never said sorry for screaming and accusations. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.